Hey guys, welcome back to the TohirT channel. Tahir is here. I hope you had a fantastic week. Well, it's been almost 2.5 years since I made this video about the Nikon setup that I used to own. It's still popular. People still keep coming back to it. So I figured now is probably no better time than ever to go and create a similar kind of review of my current setup that is around the Sony generation of the cameras as well as the lenses. And yeah, we'll talk about the 3 different lenses I own, their use cases, the pros and cons, different considerations I have, as well as whether I regret actually investing in one of those lenses. That's as much of a setup as we need, so let's just jump into it. Let's do it! I love talking tech. I am in the tech industry. I love talking about different software applications, different new products, upcoming products, the products that I'm using, and sharing my reviews and experience. So if you're curious about this kind of a content, check out this playlist over here or the end card at the end of the video. The 3 lenses I'm talking about today, the FE 1.8 85mm, this one, the lens that I'm using right now, FE 2.8 16-35mm GM edition, as well as 100 to 400 GM edition 4.5 to 5.6 OSS. Naming conventions. I know, they're awesome. Listen, at least it makes it easy for you to Google them. I use them with both of my cameras, the A7 III that I have here on tripod, as well as the A6600 that I've used. And if you are considering, going on the market and evaluating some of these new cameras that Sony recently announced, A7C, which is a smaller form factor, the upgraded version of the Alpha series, A7S III, A7R, I guess it's going to be 5 now, whatever the new model that they're going to release. If you're on the market and you're thinking about the lenses for them, these 3 lenses will work perfectly for the older and the new generation of the Sony cameras. First lens we're starting with is FE 1.8 85mm. Well, this bad boy is the workhorse on this channel. What I mean by that is majority of those special b-roll that I produce, small short films that you've seen on my channel, been primarily shot on this lens. Examples are the 3 Rings film, the most recent one, a little bit earlier last year or this year. It has been a long year. The Lego Love has been shot on this, as well as I said, whenever you see some form of the bokeh filled b-roll in my videos, this is the culprit. This is the catalyst that enables me to produce that quality of the video. And by the way, the bokeh is that blurred background, which 1.8 aperture on this lens enables you to create very shallow depth of field so that you only have 1 or 2 items really in focus and everything else, whether it's on the foreground or the background, is blurred out, which perfectly fits my style. If you've been on my Instagram channel, up until I bought 100 to 400, majority, if not 99% of the photos on my Instagram has been shot on this lens as well. And part of the reason is I like details. The whole style that I have when it comes to photography, I enjoy finding these obscure details in regular objects or regular places and just really focus on that particular detail and take a photo of it. Sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's amazing, and I'm very proud of it. And again, this has been the lens that's been helping me in this. So clearly the use case is both great for the photo as well as the video. And when it comes to both of them as well, the autofocus really helps. You have both modes. You can switch between the manual and the autofocus. I primarily use the manual because, again, I have a very specific style, so I'd like to have full control over what I'm focusing on. But at the same time, if you have kids or the pets running around, you want to snap their photos or even the video, well, this lens is fast and it will keep up. The form factor, as you can see, is amazing. This thing can fit in your pocket, not like you should be carrying this kind of a lens in your pocket, but it's very easy to put it in your smaller form bag, or for example, carry it in one of those smaller cases, like this case, and it has a few different accessories that I carry. I just put this lens in this accessory bag, cover it up, and it's perfect. So now I can fit it in any kind of a backpack or a suitcase if I'm traveling afar. It's mobile. You will be able to travel with it easily. The consideration is with 85mm and the way it's structured, it does have a pretty long focus distance, so you have to be further afar than some of the other lenses. Actually, the furthest out of all the 3 lenses that I have from the point of where you need to take a photo, where you need to have that focus point for the video or the photography. This can be challenging, especially if you have smaller room, smaller environment, and you don't have as much of room to back out and snap a photo. That can be a problem. So definitely think about that. I prefer to use this lens when I have a little bit of an open wide space and I can get a little bit more mobile when it comes to picking the spot from where I will take the photo or the video. As well as because of that high aperture, again, you can close it a little bit down, you can remove the blur from the background, but ultimately if you want to take advantage of the full 1.8, two things you'll have to consider. Catching that focus can be challenging, especially if, like you've seen on some of my photos on Instagram, I snap a photo of this like small robot or small item. I can miss frequently the focus point. It's still to this day, probably 80% of the time I'll get it right, 20% of the time I'll miss it. So now I have a habit, especially for the photography, where I adjust slightly the focus and I take multiple photos, especially if the object is very small and I'm almost like trying to mimic the macro shot. Because between the smaller visor, the smaller screen on the Alpha series camera, it can be challenging to make sure that yes, you really have things in focus. So that kind of like the process that you have to develop the habit for, but ultimately it took me way longer to describe it than it actually takes me to leverage it in the field. And also if you're shooting at 1.8, do consider buying one of the ND filters. And by the way, I'm about to make a video about the collection of ND filters that I have, so make sure you subscribe and check out the future videos. But you do have to have an ND filter if you are out and about and it's sunny and you want to take a photo or video at the full 1.8 aperture. It's going to be all white out. You literally will not see anything without the ND filter. So you do have to have something on that lens to protect from the glare and the sun and decrease the amount of light that it's ingests. But other than that, amazing lens for creative videography, amazing lens for the photography, like perfect match for the photography. And with a small form factor, easily fits in your bag and can be a nice companion while you're traveling all around the world when it's safe to travel. The second lens in my Sony collection is FE 2.8 16-35mm. Well, I don't have it in my hands because I'm currently using to record my video on it, but you will see some nice B-roll of it. If I called 85mm the workhorse, this lens is a workhorse in a carriage and the guy who's driving that carriage, if that makes sense. Essentially why I say this, I shoot every single video for the past 2 years using this lens. Any point, shape or form when you see me in the frame, that's that lens that's working hard at it. And I love it for a few reasons. I love of how nice and crisp it is, how beautiful the shot is, how wide it is. Like when we were talking about the downside of 85mm and how essentially far away you need to be for it to capture you in focus, this lens, I'm literally less than an arm's distance. Like I'm about an elbow or so away. I don't know how much is it. It's like, I don't know, 50 maybe centimeters, maybe like 1.5 feet away from my face. And it's perfect and it easily captures me in focus as well as the entire wall. And I'm only at about, I think, 19mm wide. So I still have 3 more steps to go. And with that, it's gonna capture even more wider space within this shot. As well as when it comes, as I said, to focus, you're the one who clicked, so. Right now, I am about like maybe 4 inches, 5 inches away from the lens and easily. Autofocus as well, as you can see, obviously it depends on the camera, but when it comes to autofocus, it easily adjusts. I can trust it. I can see myself walking around on like a tripod or holding the camera itself and vlogging using this lens, especially knowing again that I capture the entire area around me, which creates this immersive experience for anyone who watches that styles of videos. In terms of broader use case, besides vlogging, I see this camera as a great tool for the real estate photography. Like this is amazing. I didn't do too much. I only made like 1 video and a few photos real estate style, but this is perfect because once you open it all wide, the 16mm, you can capture the entire room, the entire space around you with a single shot. And unlike with 85mm, like you don't have to crawl up back into the corner because the focus distance is so small that you can literally stand in the tiniest room possible in the apartment that you're about to sell and you're going to capture the entire space. So if you're recording your videos from the studio, you're recording your videos from a smaller space, this is a relatively small room, this lens is perfect. Between the photo and the video, I predominantly use it for the video. You see my videos, you know how good or bad it looks depending on your preference. But when it comes to the photography, it's equally good. For me, as I said, because of my style, it does not necessarily perfectly fit that find the smallest detail and focus on it kind of approach. But if you take photos of larger crowds, bigger spaces, as I said, buildings, if you want to get close to some tree and capture the entire tree in its focus, well, this is the lenses for you. And when it comes to the consideration, this is a GM model. If you need to know one thing about GM models when it comes to Sony lenses, if you thought the regular Sony lenses are expensive, GM models are the most expensive lenses that Sony has. They're like professional grade level lenses. This lens, when I was buying it, cost me as much as the camera. So it essentially doubled my expense when I bought this lens with that camera. And by now, as I've seen the pricing, I'm pretty sure this lens is more expensive than if you would go and buy A7 III, new A7 III model, not even used one, on the market at a retail price. So this is a big investment. But if I would have to pick a single lens out of all the three lenses that I'm using, the most versatile, the most fitting lens for both photography and the video, this would be this 16-35mm GM style lens. Introducing the new member of my family. This is the 100-400mm 4.5 to 5.6 GM OSS lens. Yeah, I mean, listen, the hood kind of, this set hides the true size. I'll put it down for a second. This is the big boy. This is the bad boy that I recently acquired. And let's put it this way. This is not your vlogging or like, you know, oh, I'm here to talk about my beauty routine in the morning lens. This is, I'm going out in the park or I'm going out for camping and I'm about to take photos of like deer and bears and birds, or I'm going to a rally race and I need something fast to snap photos of the cars driving by at like 100+ miles an hour. As I said, in terms of the form factor, yeah, this thing keeps going, because once you extend it fully to 400mm, you can literally hit someone with it. I actually took this lens out to our recent Statue of Liberty visit that I described in a few videos ago, and I almost hit a couple of people with this thing, because when I had it fully extended with that hood on, that's a pretty long setup that you have to be very mindful of when you walk around and shoot with. When it comes to the other thing, I'm like holding as to a dear life, because I know how much I spent on it. That's one of the things I should have, like I actually have a few things here just in case I drop any of these lenses. But like, yeah, you have to be really careful with this, guys. What I was gonna say is that when it comes to focus, autofocus on this lens is what made me fall in love with it after snapping a few photos. Speaking of that trip to the Liberty Island, check out this photo. Nothing necessarily amazing. I mean, it's a good photo, nice high resolution of the bird flying. You can see all the feathers and small the details. The amazing part about this photo is not the photo itself, but how I took it. I was pushing the stroller with my kid while I was on the Liberty Island. I had this lens on my camera hanging on my neck, and I saw that seagull flying towards me. So I literally picked up the camera and I just flicked it. I just flicked and stopped holding down the button to press, and I only took like 3 photos, and it was like almost perfect sharpness. Literally flick of a wrist, snap a few photos, done. I have that bird in the full focus in the frame. Like, this is what this lens is capable of. So this is why I said that if you're taking photos of the nature, if you're taking photos of the animals, if you're taking photos of fast moving objects, like if you're watching the race car driving or some other sport, this thing is the perfect match for you. I'll have to now put it down before I risk drop it, because I'm still fearful. When it comes to video recording, this lens is equally great. I'm still yet to try it out for all the use cases that I have in mind, because I do want to take a trip to the city and actually I have an interesting project that I have in mind. So again, stick around if you're curious on this channel. We're gonna have it in a few weeks, hopefully. But when it comes to just video work alone, I've mentioned in my Liberty Island video that there were like literally helicopters buzzing all over the place. And here's one of the examples of the shots that I took by just fully zooming in and having that helicopter in focus on the first try. It was super easy, and you can even see how it sometimes shifts a little bit. What I guess is in-lens stabilization. Again, not a technical guy. Go to Gerald and Don if you really want to have technical deep dives. I'm here just talking about the experience of using this lens for a few months. But having that helicopter flying away from the island in focus was a breeze. And it really blew my mind when it comes to video use when I shot this quick clip. Okay, nothing special, just the airplane in distance. The difference is that there are no airports right next to the Liberty Island. This airplane, I presume, was landing, I'm pretty sure it was going in the Jersey direction, so it was landing in Newark, so it was far away. I was on the boat, in the open waters, shooting through a small window. And I was able to get that airplane at the full 400mm out in the distance. The stabilization and the way you focus this lens is so amazing and so impressive that it just blew my mind, and I really decided on the spot that yes, that was worth all the investment that I had to make for this lens. And speaking of, this is the consideration, because again, you might have noticed that orange G on the side of the lens, which marks those GM style lenses, the top line of Sony lenses. It's an expensive bad boy. I ended up actually buying it lightly used from someone, and it really helped me to save a few bucks. But ultimately, it is an investment, so you do have to consider the use case, and you really need to be into that kind of video and photography work. And once you do, from my experience so far, you will not be disappointed. What do you think about my collection of lenses? Did you find this video helpful? Do you have any other questions that I can help you based on my experience using these lenses for a while? Well, I'm here to help you make a decision whether you're a new photographer, new videographer, or experienced person alike. So stick your comments and questions in the section below. Photography and videography can be an expensive hobby. Just ask my wife. But that aside, I always come back to the same thought, and the reason why I plug this thought here, I know how I was when I was trying to pick which lenses and which camera to buy. I kept watching different videos, I kept checking out different articles, consuming as much information as possible, and infrequently would I see people actually calling out the very simple fact that you do not have to have the most expensive equipment, the most expensive tools at your disposal to create great stories and great content. So keep that in mind. I know it's tough, especially if you think about this kind of lineup that I have in front of you in this video. That's thousands of dollars worth of equipment, but ultimately you can do well with way cheaper of equipment, especially if you're early on in your career and you're just figuring out what your style would really look like. So don't feel intimidated, get excited about the kind of tools that are out there, but if you have to begin, start small and slowly build up. Again, I did not buy all of this equipment together. It's been a few years of me slowly purchasing one lens after the other, and now I'm happy that I can share that experience with you, and I'm fully confident you have the skills, and over time with practice you will have what it takes to show me up with your photos and with your video work without any of these lenses or these cameras. Thank you very much guys for stopping by. If you're new to this channel, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and check out the videos in the backlog. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you very much for stopping by. As always, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about this video, and I will see you all next Saturday, 10 AM Eastern on this very channel. Okay, I think we've been 3 videos now in a row about tech. I'll try to come up with a different topic for next week's video. I blame working on that MKBHD video. It definitely inspired me and reminded me of some of the things that I wanted to try out. So here I am trying them out, but I think it's time for us to do something slightly different. So I'll see you in the next week. Peace.